la Virgen del Socavón y el Chiru.
There exists in the temperate valleys of South America a very small dark-colored bird, a kind of warbler or bastard nightingale, with a very harmonious song, which they call the Chiru. This little bird makes its nest in the form of a long bag, hanging on the highest branch of a tree, choosing the quietest places. Said bag is worked from the bottom to the entrance, which is barely an insignificant hole enough to give way to the body of the little bird, through an intertwining of carob thorns, with the spikes arranged outward, so strong, so solidly secured by an elastic substance, similar to parchment, which the little bird makes, which is impossible to discover the bottom of the nest, unless it is destroyed with a sharp instrument. By analogy with such a nest, and due to an ancient custom, in some places, such as in the valleys of the department of Cochabamba, the person who has messy hair and bristling hair is usually called Chiru head. More or less 3 centuries ago, since, at the foot of the Pai de Gallo hill located to the east and on the outskirts of the city of Oruro, where the Spanish conquerors discovered the first and very rich silver mines known by the name of Virgen del Socavón, lived, or rather, had made his lair, a thief who, due to the similarity of his lair with the nest of the described bird, was called the Chiru. Such a thief, who, it may be said in passing, was not a bloodthirsty criminal and was only concerned with committing petty theft, in an abrupt place at that time and today terraced and turned into a small square, he had built his miserable house, so low and poorly made, as not to attract the attention of anyone, and it was so those who knew the Chiru and they were unaware of the evil arts to which he was engaged, they considered him a beggar or a poor and harmless vagabond, without lack of charitable people who still lent him their protection. For his part, he had enough skill to sell in a remote neighborhood of our city of Oruro what he stole in another, apparently playing the role of a simple commission agent or manager of third parties, so that, being such an insignificant poor devil and not even knowing where he came from, no one ever bothered to know his lair, all the more reason, either he got up very early or remained hermetically sealed inside it. The years had passed without noticing any novelty or alteration in the life always the same as Chiru, until, one of those good days, his disappearance was noticed, without anyone having seen him anywhere or at any time. As long enough passed without his appearance, a neighbor thought of going to visit the man's lair. The commission moved, aided by a lighter, suspecting the gloom of the Zakwazami, and having found his little door a little ajar, he resolutely entered the room, and here comes the astonishment and stupefaction of those present. They found the unhappy Chiru lying dead. Such astonishment and stupefaction became indescribable when, raising their eyes, they contemplated, at the head of the corpse and on the wall that served as a monument to the Cuartucho, a surprising and wonderful Virgin, almost life-size, of the Virgin of Candelaria, with her beautiful child and the attributes of that dedication, the happy spectators of that prodigy falling involuntarily to their knees. The news spread in a flash, the neighbors came, all miners, and, very soon, the entire inhabitants of the city. They extracted the corpse of Chiru to re-know the cause of his death, shroud him decently and give him an honorable burial in his lair, converting it, since then, into a kind of Sancta Santorin was the site of an incessant pilgrimage, which lasted months, years and centuries, and which continues, uninterrupted, to the present. The Chiru was indeed devoted to the Virgin of Candelaria and had at its head a small image of its patron saint, in a lithographed square or, surely, stamped on wood, at that time. Every night that he went out to do his misdeeds, because by day he was the most honest man, he infallibly left a tallow candle lit for his Virgin, so that she would protect him in his escapades and get her out with good of any conflict. The Holy Virgin, probably feeling sorry for his misery, let him do or turned a blind eye, while the Chiru plundered some of his earthly goods from the powerful and the rich, generally greedy and uncharitable. But on one fateful night, He tried to seize the only treasure owned by an unhappy road laborer and his family, consisting of a leather flask containing his poor, humble, worn clothes. Naturally, the Virgin was extremely indignant, and, inwardly appealing to the conscience of her devotee, she forbade her to commit such an attack, but the Chiru persisted in executing such an infamy because he considered it too easy. Not without insisting on his prohibition, the Virgin abandoned the thief under her protection. The Chiru, now free of all scruples, put himself into immediate execution, but the contingency that he was going to run into a man who, although too unhappy, was so courageous and resolute that he knew not only how to face all the adversities of his bad luck, but also defend, to the blood, had not entered into his plans. And fire and recklessly, his own life, those of his wife and children, and the treasure of his miserable rags. When the Chiru was already sneaking into the house of that poor family, through a little door that he carefully opened ajar, the walker, who was a very light sleeper, woke up immediately and perceiving a slight noise, and through the light of the door the presence of a shadow, believing that it was some murderer or a bitter enemy he had, he quickly took the dagger that served him for his wanderings and travels, and as he was a man who did not expect to receive in order to give, he threw himself on the door, without the Chiru having time but to turn his back, in which the Pathfinder dealt him a deep stab. As the thief was too agile, despite his mortal wound and the stupefaction of the walker, who stopped expecting to see his victim collapse, he began to run in such a way that although the aggressor tried to chase him later, he could not catch up with him. Losing it in the shadows of the night, as much as the stab wound had not compromised the wounded man's heart, and no matter how strong his strength was, after having run about 5 or 6 blocks, Chiru, whose injury was too serious, fell fainting, in the open field, already on the outskirts of the then still small town. There, almost dying and possessed of the most immense and sincere repentance of him, he began to cry out to his divine patron and to implore her protection. The Virgin, no doubt moved by the fervent prayers of her disobedient protege, seeing him in such a hard and disastrous trance, besides, to take advantage of that supreme moment of regeneration of his soul, he hastened to the place where he lay, and, encouraging him in his faith and lavishing him with the most solicitous and delicate care, he led him, slowly, to his already described lair. Installed the wounded man in his humble bed. The divine nurse, with all the love and tenderness of a mother, assisted him, kindly, until his last moments, collecting from the lips of the thief, along with his repentance, the sincere gratitude of his parents' blessings. And Chiru's eyes closed forever, her noble protector was immediately transformed into the beautiful image, which under the patronage of the Virgin de Socavón, is venerated today, in the temple of the same name.
Has llegado al final de la historia. Ahora descansa en paz, pero antes suscríbete y dale like al video.